You're welcome back. As Nigeria steps into a new business week, the pressure on household continues to deepen. Food prices are rising, cooking gas is becoming increasingly unaffordable, and for many families, putting a meal on the table is now a daily struggle. But beyond our borders, a bigger storm is brewing. Tensions in the Middle East, particularly involving Iran, Israel, and the United States, are beginning to disrupt global supply chains. One critical choke point is the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global oil and fertilizer shipment. Any sustained disruption there has ripple effects that reach all the way to Nigerian farms and markets. We are now entering a key planting season, yet concerns are growing about fertilizer shortages, rising input costs, and what this could mean for food production in the months ahead. At the same time, higher oil prices are driving up transportation costs, worsening food inflation across the country. Today we ask, how prepared is Nigeria to withstand this global shock? Do we have the systems, the reserves rather, and the policies in place to protect food security for millions of citizens? To have this conversation, I am delighted to be joined by Aniche Ndidim Roland. He's financial analyst and CEO of Rugan Capital Limited. Mr. Roland, it's a pleasure to have you here today again.
Thank you very much.
Yes. What are the realities of the Iran, Israel, the United States war on food security in Nigeria currently?
Okay, like you mentioned, the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
You know that's it's a choke point.
Checkpoint indeed.
It's a choke point where if you go up, you see Iran. That's Iraq produces about 2 million barrels. Underneath, you have Kuwait, another 2 million barrels. On the other side, you have Iran that produces another 2 million barrels. You have Oman, basically maybe another 1 million. UAE, another 2 million. Then Saudi Arabia by the side, 10 million. So approximately 20 million barrels flows through that axis, through the Strait of Hormuz, which is a choke point. And because of the war, and let me say temporary closure. Well, I will not really say there's complete closure. But we need to emphasize that those areas are very volatile, and shipping companies are being insured to absorb risk of losses through a breakdown or sunk ship. Now, the bulk of insurance companies are based in England and Europe, very few in America. And so what they did was they withdrew insurances for ships across that zone. So no ship will move if there's no insurance cover. And so a lot of ships are all stocked there, carrying petroleum products. So, and that's why there's a spike in the price of crude oil, which is the main natural resource for all the derivatives of energy, all from PMS, AGO, which is petrol, diesel, aviation oil, and also fertilizer equipment. You also have the urea, phosphates, and all that, and also your gas. So, I think I saw the last time we were here, it was about 92. It came down gradually to 82. It has now gone up to about $100 per barrel. And so you could see, because the derivatives, which is used to power energy, production, productivity across the globe. So there's a spike in price of things generally. And so this is one of the major drivers of inflation. When there's a general increase in price. Okay, today I even came to your office. I used to pay 300 naira to your office. Right now I paid 400 naira, additional 100 naira. So these are the realities. Now, but when you now talk about for food, you could see it has its own dynamics too, right from the planting seasons, the type of farming techniques you use. We're actually doing still subsistence farming, not yet fully mechanized.
True.
Then access to seedlings, are they brought locally or imported? Then the fertilizer. Are we self-sufficient in fertilizer production? You know, Indorama is doing a good job when they took over Element Petrochemicals. So they're also producing fertilizer. Do we have enough capacity to take care of the entire country's needs? Or we're still importing? If we're importing fertilizer, that's a cost. So, and depending on the sector of farming, which is large itself, you have generally both the farming, then the harvesting seasons. The harvesting seasons, sources of storage. Do we have, what are the losses incurred? Is it heavy? Depending on the product. So our storage facilities is also an issue. So you can see there's a structural issue there.
Yes.
Worst of it all is from source of supply to the market, how is it conveyed? This thing should be moved through trains, but we don't have the trains. The trains are not there. So we're using trucks, which you can imagine the distance. So these whole costs adds up to it. So the price, what's the price of this AGO now, or diesel?
Yeah.
Diesel is close to 1,004, 1,005. So it's going to impact.
Okay.
So these are the issues. But I need to even state again, we're still doing seasonal farming in Nigeria, which is a problem. Most countries have advanced beyond seasonal farming. Funny enough, my younger brother went to Uganda. He was talking about, he's also into farming. So he spoke to some Ugandans that are into farming, and he said in Nigeria, we still do seasonal farming. They laughed at him. He said, seasonal farming, that's strange.
If I'm all year, all year round.
All year round is irrigation. So these are things they've conquered, but we're still stuck in the past. So until we move it up, where we now do seasonal farming, then the biggest of all variable that's really impacted negatively on food production in Nigeria is insecurity.
Insecurity.
Very, especially in the north, where that's the food basket.
Yeah, you saw the news from the United States, the drones and 200 soldiers.
Well,
there's a big shift to that. But they're not going to be in full combat. Just supply intelligence.
Backup.
Yes.
So backup. And so until we see a cessation of insurgency, northwest, northeast, then there will be a cushion. But then the structural issues are still there, where from a farming technique methods to storage to means of transportation to the markets. These are issues. Another thing we must talk about, access to funding for the farmers. Then also insurance. Insurance against losses by the government is key. While I was growing up in the 80s, I watched a documentary about wheat farming in America. When there's excess of it, the government buys it off in order to control the price. The next thing they do is they take those excess, go to the sea and dump it in there. That's huge. So you could see where there's an active action on the part of the government to ensure that the price of a staple food like wheat, which is for bread and all that, is manageable, is controlled.
Yeah, all right. For a country like this, there's an oil-producing country, and we do not have. We don't. It's not like it's visible, but our oil reserve, our crude reserve, is just alarming, right? Now let's talk about the food reserve, stock pile of food like rice. Do we have reserves for this?
No, just like when we're producing,
okay,
but it's inadequate because we are now importing. It is when you are now having excess capacity, you now start to talk about reserves. Yes, it's just simple.
So what we're producing right now is not enough.
We're still importing rice, just like rice. Yeah. We're still importing. Yes, even though there's a surge in local farming of rice. Very good idea. But you see, it's a step we're taking where it will take us, depending on how we take it as a national security. In fact, it should be a national security where resources should be deployed towards ensuring food sustenance, especially, or let's say for rice. We say, okay, in the next 5-10 years, we'll put a stop to importation of rice. So it's something which we all have to work towards.
Yeah. Do you think that what is happening now in Iran with the US and Israel would affect food output down the year? Because fertilizer not coming in, a lot of farmers rely on this.
Okay. Now,
It's not like we have enough. Yeah, fertilizer plants enough here.
There's one, like I said, I told you, Indorama
For
fertilizer.
the most populous nation in the world, not in the world, in Africa rather, just one.
I don't have the right data on fertilizer production in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're even meeting local demand. So if we're importing fertilizer, then that means the impact of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz will have an impact in the country.
Of course.
And on the price of fertilizer. And also it will trickle down to the price of commodities generally, more especially for goods, for food that is using the normal fertilizers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, how vulnerable is Nigeria's agricultural sector to external shocks like this?
It's not just only Nigeria, I think the entire world, because we're all globally linked together.
The entire world, but you see, there are countries that already have things, buffers, things that would help them stabilize for a period of time.
Yeah.
Yes. So how vulnerable are we presently? Agriculturally?
Let's look at the shock.
Yes.
Normally, I know the nation has a strategic petroleum reserve for crude oil. I don't know what the state is now. Yes. Then we should also have a strategic reserve for the byproducts, more especially critical byproduct, PMS, AGU. At least you should have 6 months. So that irrespective of the fluctuation, the system can absorb it, that your reserves, you can use it to cushion for the first 6 months or the first 2-3 months, hoping when the shocks ends. But right now, even if we have, the reserves are depleted. That's the reality. And so we're going to be affected by what is happening. Even if you take, for instance, the war in Russia and Ukraine, that axis is a wheat basket. Russia and Ukraine in particular, a wheat basket. And they also, wheat is also a derivative for animal feeds across board. And so any animal feed that we're using locally, which is imported, up to even poultry feeds, it has a function of wheat inside. The prices will go up. So these are the issues. Any country that is producing 20-30% of a supply chain for the entire globe, if there's a problem in that area, it reverberates across the globe.
Okay, so let's also talk about fuel, the rise of fuel and cooking gas prices.
Yeah.
How is this also compounding food insecurity in Nigeria currently? Okay.
Take, like I said, logistics.
Yes.
Your trucks, your vehicles that convey goods either from the farms or from the production centers, the prices will go up. The person that is paying more for diesel or for fuel to take it to the market woman will pay more for it. The same market woman will have to recover her costs and pass it down to the final consumer. The need for, if it's for goods that are being processed, it has and it is importing each raw material. The fact that the price of the raw material that is being imported is on the rise, the manufacturer will pass the cost down to the eventual, or the retailer or wholesaler. And the wholesaler will also pass it down to the eventual buyer. So it's a complete chain. It's a complete chain. So the issue now is the government, where do they stand to come in as a buffer?
Yes.
To cushion the effects. So these are the issues.
So what practical steps can be taken down to protect both farmers and consumers in the coming months? Looking at everything we have on the table, the realities on ground.
Right now, the aspect of fertilizer, where government can come in, sell fertilizer at reduced prices, much like a subsidy, on actual production, not consumption. You subsidize production. So they can come in and it's okay, we're going to provide cheaper fertilizers for the farmers. That's one way.
Speaking about subsidizing, do you think a lot of people have been talking about subsidizing fuel? Pedro, what do you think?
You see, yes, there are areas where subsidies.
Do you think it makes any economic sense currently?
Civilized countries still subsidize, especially farming equipment, farming in particular. You don't take it off.
I'm talking about fuel.
For fuel, no. I think we've gone through that stage.
Okay.
We've gone through,
Okay.
even though right now,
Yeah, people are calling for
even
subsidy.
right now, the reason why subsidy was taken off, and government said there'll be more money to run the government.
Yes,
We're seeing a different thing right now because the volume of loans this present administration has taken is humongous. So we're not asking, so where is the savings from subsidy? So these are clear issues that I'm yet to wrap my head around.
Yeah, back to the practical steps. So what do you think? Just one?
Okay,
Yes.
so like I said, subsidy on fertilizer.
Yes.
One. The others are more of structural, which takes time when it comes to means of transportation down to the eventual markets. Then access to cheap loans. Are they available? Are they accessible? Then insurance against losses. I can tell you a personal example. My brother farmed 20 hectares of ginger. Somewhere in the middle belt. There was a fungal outbreak right in the soil. We lost 70%. 70 to 80%. So the whole month, you're talking 20 hectares of ginger went down. Nobody compensates. So you could see issues like that. Even during the COVID in Europe and America, there was a drop in demand. So the farmers kept on burying their eggs and flushing their milk production into the rivers. They were compensated for it. So here in Nigeria and Africa, I'm yet to hear any where the government comes into as an off-taker and insures against losses. We're not there yet. And so that's why you could see price of food is relatively cheap and they make sure it's available. So we're yet to get to that because it's a whole
journey.
Long trade, it's a whole long journey. So we will not get there immediately. Then our size should not be a problem, but a big market to ensure that farming, which is a business, is actually run as a business.
All right. Mr. Roland, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the Eastern Business Report at the Afia Business Morning. Returns tomorrow. Many thanks for staying with us. My name is Norma Aniwene. Bye for now.